there, it is E Squared Photography. I'm Emily, and the other half, Erin of E Squared Photography, is not here, so it will just be me today. And we are going to talk everything automatic versus manual mode and why it's important to start making that shift to manual mode and help you feel a little bit more comfortable with it as well. And stick around until the end of the video because we have something special that is going to help you even more. So we promise by the end of this video, you are going to be pumped up to start learning manual mode and excited to tackle it and use it at your next session or the next time you pick up that DSLR camera or that mirrorless camera. And for the best photography tips and tricks, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell for notifications of future videos. Let's dive in. So when we first started out with photography, we shot in automatic mode for a handful of our first sessions. We even would try to shoot manual mode, and then we'd be like, too scary, go to automatic mode. It'll for sure show us decent work. So once we started to realize like this is not the best work we can possibly do, we really sat down and we really simplified and helped ourselves understand manual mode. So taking a look here are a couple images of us. The image on the left that's very dark and just you can tell attempted, overly edited, but didn't really work. That was shot in automatic mode, and that's what auto mode did for us. It didn't do much. It was very difficult to work with. And once we started using manual mode, we were in way more control of our images and getting them to look the way we wanted. And here's another one of two different weddings. The one on the left was in automatic mode, and the one on the right was manual mode. So you can just see the transformation. It helped us take our images once we started to use manual mode. Okay, so let's break it down super simple to start here. So automatic mode is usually green on your camera spin dial, and manual mode is usually the letter M. So if you have your camera nearby, go ahead and grab it and see if you can figure out what is automatic and what is manual. So what is the difference? Why does it make so much more of an impact using manual mode? Let's first talk about what is automatic mode. Auto mode is when your camera is trying to figure it all out for you, which cameras are smart. They can figure out quite a bit for us, but they're not as smart as we are. We can be in more control of it. So when using manual mode, you have complete control. You can change and manipulate those settings the way you want to make your images look the way you want them to look. So using it is so powerful. So comment down below and let us know, what is your biggest frustration with your camera settings, manual mode, whatever it might be. So I have a question for you. Are you experiencing any of these issues here? Trouble getting sharp focus. We were there, we've been there, we still happen to slide into that every now and then. Or are your photos too bright or too dark when you're shooting? Or are you lacking that background blur or bokeh that you really want to try to get? Can you answer any of those questions? So if you are experiencing any of those issues and you can answer yes to those questions, it is time to learn manual mode. So let's simplify manual mode and kind of break it down for you here. So there are three pieces to manual mode, and one of the first pieces is ISO. And ISO is the camera sensor's sensitivity to light. So on your camera, you can set your ISO to a variety of things. When you're using automatic mode, it's going to pick an ISO that it thinks is appropriate for where you're shooting. So let's talk about low ISOs and high ISOs. So a low ISO might be something like an ISO anywhere from 100 to 400. And a high ISO is something like 800 or higher. So what are the pros and what are the cons of low and high ISOs? Let's talk about that. So low ISOs are very great because you can use low ISOs and set your camera to a low ISO in the middle of the day when you're shooting outside, and your images are going to look very nice. When you have to use a higher ISO, which is not bad all the time, but when you have to turn that ISO up higher, your camera is trying to be more sensitive to the light, and that's why that high ISO is better. But what your camera is going to do, and you're going to start noticing, is it's going to start producing images with grain in them and noise, and we don't want that. We don't love that look. So the ISO plays a really important role in understanding what ISO to use when you are in certain places, so you are not choosing the wrong ISO. And sometimes in automatic mode, your camera might choose the wrong ISO for you and leave you with some grain, which you don't necessarily need to have. Another piece to manual mode is aperture. So we have ISO and now aperture. Aperture, or another word we like to use when referring to aperture, and you'll hear a lot of photographers say this, is f-stop. And aperture is the opening of the lens through which light passes. So you can see here in these two diagrams, one of the lenses is wide open, where lots of light is going to be able to pass through, versus in the other one, not as much light will be able to pass through. So again, your lens, or your camera, but it's really your lens, can shoot at different f-stops, and it depends on the lens you have. All lenses are different. So all lenses will shoot at a range of f-stops or apertures. Let's talk about low f-stop numbers versus high f-stop numbers and what that all means. So a lower f-stop would be something like listed here in f1.4. And not all cameras go that low to an f1.4, but when you're shooting at a low f-stop, you are going to let more light into your lens. And a higher f-stop, like an f6 or even higher, is going to let less light into your lens because your lens is more closed. So being able to have control over that rather than having your camera guess what f-stop to use is going to benefit you in so many ways. It's going to benefit you in having you create crisp, sharp images and creating that bokeh background that you love. Those play very big roles in the f-stop plays a very big role in creating those things. And when you can choose the number, the ideal number you want, you are going to achieve those things. All right, the third piece to manual mode, you have ISO, you have aperture, and now we also have something called shutter speed. Shutter speed is the length of time the shutter is open. So examples of shutter speeds your camera might shoot at would be like a 1/30 or a 1/1000. And your camera is going to have a wide range of shutter speeds that it can shoot at. So what do those numbers mean? What's a fast shutter speed versus a slow shutter speed? What does it all mean? So a fast shutter speed would be something like 1 over a larger number, 1/1000. That's a fast shutter speed. And that is going to allow less light to come into the lens because your shutter is clicking open and closing very quickly, so less light is able to travel through. This fast shutter speed is very good for movement shots. Now a slow shutter speed would be 1 over a smaller number, so maybe 1/60. That's a slow shutter speed. And this, because the shutter is opening and closing slower, more light is going to be able to travel through your lens. Now, our biggest goal as photographers when we're at sessions is to keep everything super, super simple and change as little as we need to on our camera as far as settings go, especially manual mode settings. We do not want to have to be changing them all the time. So we have created a free download for you to break down manual mode even more, and you can get that in the description below. But we also have a manual mode training happening that you can attend. It's a 1-hour training, and we dive deep into manual mode and really break it all down and how we keep it very simple at sessions. So make sure to check that out as well. Now, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and make sure to follow us along on Instagram at e2photography for even more tips and tricks there. And we will see you next Monday morning.